Cheryl Ginnings has some technical issue. So we will pause this session and we will rejoin when she's back. So meanwhile, we are going to start the Janet Little session. Please do join Speaker Janet Little session. Thank you. To me now. You're sending emails back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Thank
yeah. Let Melinda introduce you and you can take over the stage.
Hi, Cheryl. How are you?
Wonderful.
Thank you. So, welcome stage, Cheryl. Cheryl, a compassionate caregiver and mother of a special needs son, supports families through coaching, online classes, and advocacy. With extensive experience and accolades, including being named Lawton's Business Person of the Year 2023, she empowers families to improve their lives and uncover hidden treasures within their children. Join her in creating hope-filled conversation and transforming family life. Thank you so much. You can start the presentation.
Just a friendly reminder, please be mindful of other timings and the speaker slot session is 25 minutes and 5 minutes of question and answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here today, and I appreciate all of the people who are putting together this event. And today I really want to share with you some things that are on my heart because I do have a special needs son, and I also work with families who have special needs children. And my title is, I Wish You Really Knew Me, because so many times we judge people according to their outward appearance. You know, if we see somebody that's limping along, they have a cane or they're in a wheelchair, we may assume that they don't know anything. And if you're a parent with a child, then people are often critical of you, of your parenting skills, because they assume that everything your child does must be your fault. And we are not that, it's not that easy to decide what happens. Have you ever had a child where you were walking along and you thought people did not even, they thought your child was misbehaving, and they may make a comment like, oh, if she just was a better parent, their child would behave better. And they make assumptions like that. But we are finding out that children with autism have often had, even though my son's not autistic, he has cerebral palsy and he's total care. We're finding out that with children with autism, there's so much stigma attached to them. And many times people assume that they don't know anything, or they're so disabled they can't function, but that's just not true. We're learning more about the brain, how it interacts, and with the brain working in a different way, sometimes they have superpowers. And even some of the most famous people that we know often have autism. And I'm going to mention a few just to see if you know some of these people, but the most famous person of all is Dr. Temple Grandin. And if you don't know anything about her, she's called the cow doctor. And that's because of having autism. When she was young, she would look at the cows and she thought they're hurting, and she could see things that others missed. And her vision of what was going on was what helped her to design the pens that helped guide those cows to go to the slaughtering house without knowing what was going to happen. And it's something that's everywhere. She's also a professor, and there's been a movie about her. So I would recommend, if you want to know more about autism, you go right to her movie, and it's Temple Grandin is the name of it. But did you know that Jerry Seinfeld, a comedian, was also diagnosed with autism? And Bill Gates he's on the spectrum, and just think how smart he is and how much he's done. Anthony Hopkins, Woody Allen, Susan Boyle, and even people in history they think might have been autistic in some area, because, you know, it's a spectrum, different amounts. Thomas Jefferson, can you imagine that people would ever think that he was any different from someone else? What about Sir Isaac Newton? You know, miss a lot of things in history that we don't know about because we see the good things. And yet with people in ordinary lives, we assume that they don't know very much. Charles Schultz, that gave us Peanuts and Charlie Brown, Snoopy. Oh my goodness, he's so much fun. And yet he was diagnosed on that spectrum. Also, Elon Musk was on Saturday Night Live not long ago, and he admitted that he was on the spectrum. And if somebody who can become the greatest, most renowned person in our times,
alert for mouse battery very low.
Also having the ability to design things that improve our lives and come up with so many things, how do we assume that they cannot, that he can't do anything? Well, we don't. We know what he's done. But let me just tell you, this is a very widespread problem because according to the CDC, about 1% of our population has some kind of autism. They're on the autism spectrum. That's 75 million people. We need to be learning more about the people that have that. Also, with cerebral palsy, did you know there are 18 million in the world that have some form of cerebral palsy? That means that 764,000 are born every year with cerebral palsy. So I just want you to know that it is common, but people assume that anyone with any kind of a disability must have a lot of mental problems to go along with it. They certainly can't communicate or carry on life without help. And people make the assumption or the stigma that somehow if a child had autism or they've got a label of some kind, they are abnormal. That's not true. They're just not like me. And so you can see that the word disability or putting a label on it can sometimes lead people to forget these are real people. They have a problem that they're dealing with, and yet we assume so much about them that's not right. But autism is not your child's total identity, so don't treat them as if they are that way. Let's help our children learn how to do the most they can do and think the best of them. And I even wrote a little ebook a while back about find the hidden treasures in your child, because I think we put so much emphasis on the things that they need to improve that we forget they have some very strong points. Now, I want to take this a little bit further and let you think with me for a minute, because my son has been looked at by doctors without being able to communicate with him, without trying to communicate with him most of the time. And yet they will make a diagnosis that is just impossible. I mean, it grieves me to think that other parents would be going through this. I've had doctors look in his eyes for a few seconds and say, there's no hope for him. He'll never be able to do anything. He'll never walk. He'll never talk. He'll never be worth anything. Put him away. Forget you ever had him. How horrible is that as a parent to be told something like that? But I have to tell you, even just a few years ago, he's now 53. He was in the hospital and he was very ill because he had had surgeries where they had actually punctured him. And when they did, it caused a lot of problems. He was in ICU with tubes coming in and out. A hospitalist walked in the door and she said, you need to sign this DNR right now. I was so shocked at what she was saying to me. And I said, I can't do that. You know, why are you thinking that? I need to talk to the doctor. And she looked at me and said, you don't have time. She is saying this in front of my son who's laying there hanging between life and death, but I'm not going to sign a DNR. And right then she looked at him and pointed at him and said, look at him. He has no quality of life. Can you imagine someone saying that to your child? But those are the kind of assumptions that we often make when we don't know anything about the person that we're looking at. Is any of this resonating with you? Have you ever looked at somebody and you've misjudged them, or you thought, They don't have much to offer. I can never get along with them. And yet later you find out you have so much in common that they become one of your best friends. And that happened to me when I was a young married woman, and I saw a couple and I thought, well, we don't have anything in common with them. And yet they became our best friends for 40 years up until their own death. So we need to quit making these judgments about how people look, because if you really knew me, I think you'd really like me. And that's the way people feel when they have disabilities. They just want to be heard, to be seen, and to be understood, and to be loved, and people not to treat them differently. And I have to say that I had a history professor a few years ago. He had had an arm removed because of cancer on this arm, and he had just a little clip, at the end of his prosthesis. I got to know him really well, and he shared with me that when he goes out to eat with his wife, that the waitress will come to the table and actually see that hand, artificial hand, and say, what does he want to eat? Can you imagine? This is a man who's a professor who has written many books. I mean, at that time, he had written 13 books, very brilliant. And yet people assumed because he didn't have a hand that he somehow was not whole enough to even answer questions. So we make the wrong assumptions by people when we end up making those judgments about them. What we need to do is to tear down these barriers that keep us from knowing each other and understand we're more alike than we are different. And to quit making a rash call that somehow we're going to not be able to get along with somebody because of the color of their skin or the way they look or whatever. And I just want to tell you, I work really hard in helping families understand how important it is for them to help their children to grow, to be as strong as they can be, and to learn how to look for the good things, celebrate every little thing that they do that can improve them, because what you celebrate and what you acknowledge is what you're going to get. So if you're always looking at them thinking how you're going to change them, imagine how that feels. That people will never accept anything about you that they feel like is really good. So what I'm trying to do is to open the conversations with people, to start a movement to understand that we have a lot of things in common. And if we would just focus on the good things instead of all the negative things and stop judging outward appearances, that we would be so much better off in our families, in our schools, in our communities, even in the whole world, if we would just learn to get along and to see each other for good things. There was a book written years ago called Why Am I Afraid to Tell You Who I Am? And it was written to make this very point that we wear masks a lot of times. We may see the same people all the time, and yet we don't know them because we don't really get deep into conversations. We don't really become authentic with them. And when we're authentic, it creates the compassion and the empathy, and we develop our friendships in a much better way. So that's really important. And how do you do it? One thing I can say is that in our society, people have forgotten how to communicate. You see them at a table eating out, and you'll see every member of the family sitting there on their iPhones, texting somebody. Maybe they're texting each other, but I don't think so. And it's one of those problems that when we see people are not doing it, not being able to communicate, we know why there are a lot of problems in our families and why divorce is so prevalent, why we have so many single parent families, because we've forgotten the basics of communication. We need to learn how to share joys and sorrows. We need to learn how to understand that when someone's having a bad day, maybe they just need a hug. And we need to be able to really enjoy each other because we're all different. Every one of us has something that we are weak in and something else that we're strong in. I was on the First World Autism Summit just a few weeks ago, and one of the things on our panel that we were discussing was how many people have the stigmas against someone with any kind of disability. They assume so much that they think they know that they're not capable of doing anything, and that's so wrong. We just need to be able to put those stigmas, those labels aside, and start looking at how we can communicate. One of the problems we have in schools, and I taught a class for teachers and parents in Texas one time for a university, and what I was trying to help them to see is that there are so many different ways that people learn, and yet we focus on mainly one thing, and that is with our just speech and lecturing and in telling people things, and we think they're going to remember it, but they don't remember but maybe 10% of what they hear, if that. So what we need to do is to get real close to people, understand if they're visual, help them in that way. If they are tactical, let's be able to get down and help make every place where they can be part of it, be inclusive, and foster acceptance and a feeling of belonging. And education is going to be one of the ways that we'll have to do this, because that's what, where our children are most of the time. And also in being authentic, we want to nurture those friendships that we have. And we can't do that unless we become a little more vulnerable and explain some of the feelings that we have and what makes us happy, what makes us sad, and what makes us different, what makes us, what we enjoy, and then the things that we really don't enjoy. But encourage our children, as we're teaching them, to reach for the stars. Don't settle for what people assume is going to be the real you. Make sure that you help them rise up and to become better than what other people may think that they are going to be capable of doing. And our purpose today is not to discourage you from being who you are, but rather to encourage you that as a parent, you know more than most people will ever know about your child, because you know them from 24/7. And our teachers need us to be partners to help them understand what they're able to do at home that they may not be doing for them at school, so we can work together on doing it. But we need to start with including each other and accepting without any of the reservations that we've had. If you are a parent and you're struggling, trying to find ways to help your child, and you'd like to connect with me, I would love to be able to help you, because those are ways that we can really encourage each other. And I can help you to be empowered, speak up, to get your voice, to stand up, speak up, and be heard anywhere. But your child needs your voice, because you are their voice. And if you don't speak up for them, who will? They can't. Many times they're unable to speak up for themselves. So I want to encourage you. If you need some support in this area, please reach out to me. And I do have some free gifts. And one of the things I didn't want to do is go too long today, because I know some of the talks are going over time. They need to catch up a little bit. But I have some information for you that I would love for you to be able to get if you're interested. And you can go to my LinkedIn page. I've got that up there. But I also have free gift down below that if you're interested in being able to get a free gift, go to my website, which is my name, Cheryl Ginnings, you see how it's spelled, .com/home. And for some reason, I can't get that to click up there for me, but there, did it go up? Okay, there you go. You can just get on that link there, and I have some free gifts there. I want to help you to understand how you yourself can empower your children, the way that you treat them, and the things that you are saying with them on a day-to-day basis, and the way that you foster their self-image. I want you to just find every way that you can to say, you did a great job. You are just awesome. And help them understand that they are not their diagnosis. They are not a label. They are individual people with love, with sorrows, with hurts, with joy, with all of the feelings that you and I have. And then find ways to connect to other parents. And that's what I try to help people do. Find other people who are going through the same thing that you're going through or similar things, so that you can help each other and you can seek out when you're having a problem, how did anybody else deal with this problem? Because that gives you so much more strength. And you'll find inspiration when you hear how parents are able to do things. One of my major concerns in this group with children who have disabilities is the fact that the parents end in divorce 90% of the time. I'm big on helping families learn how to communicate, to be able to stay together, because I believe they both parents want the best for that child. They just aren't able to communicate with each other how they're really feeling, that they both grieve and they both have dreams. And so if we can help in that area in any way, please reach out, find support, and I'll be glad to help point you in the direction of someone who can support you if that's a problem. I've also got a list of ways that we can help our children if by reaching out and helping special needs girls, especially since this is a World Summit for Women, help them in their process of being able to empower them and help them to break those stigmas and the stereotypes and rise up. We're seeing young girls who are going through college, getting a degree. We've seen one recently that became a lawyer, and she was the first one with autism to do that. There was a young man who couldn't speak for 12 years. They got a communication board, and in 3 years of working with his dad, he wrote to him and said, "Dad, I have a song in my head that's 70 minutes long." His dad was shocked, and he got a composer to sit with him, and they worked for the next 2 or 3 years together. That composer was able to get it out of this young man's head, and it was just performed in September in Los Angeles with an orchestra, and it's on YouTube. And if you can find that video, you need to watch it, because you will see a young man who's rocking, who looks like he doesn't really know what's going on. He was the composer. Don't limit your children. Don't limit other people's children. Rise up, speak up, and empower the families to be all that they can be. And I appreciate so much getting to be here. Thank you all for listening and sharing today with me. I'm very happy to have been a part of this day. Does anybody have any questions?
Hey Cheryl, thank you for finishing it on time. Thank you so much. Your speech was very inspirational, and a lot of our audience gave very positive comments. I think we have a question for you. Malika, can you go ahead with the question, please?
Yes, here is the question from our audience, Cheryl. So, what is the most valuable lesson you have learned in your career? Could you please share your experiences with us?
Okay, I think the question is, what lesson I've learned in my career? Okay, what I've learned the most, the most valuable lesson in this. Okay, the most valuable thing I can share with you is, don't prejudge people. Don't look at the outside and think you know all about that person. We have different colors of skin. We have different, some of us are thin, some are heavy, some are, tall, some are short. Don't make a judgment if someone has a wheelchair they walk with a limp or they have a difficult problem, please get to know people. Don't judge people from the outside. Learn how to accept people for who they are. And you can't do that unless you get to know them.
What a wonderful takeaway from your speech and your answer as well. Yeah, we should not judge a book by its cover. So thank you so much. I hope this answered your question in one of the audience. So please reach out to Cheryl Ginnings for any further questions. You can always reach out to her on LinkedIn or Facebook, or you can also personally message her here in the Airmeet. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we will finish this Cheryl Ginnings. So that's her. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
And let me just say one more thing. I put my phone number up here, and I would love for people to get out their phone and put it into their phone. And if they ever need help, just text me. I'd like to talk to you, and I'll get right back to them, because I feel like sometimes people don't know where to go for help. And I've heard from others that they don't know where to turn to get help when they have special needs children. Please just send me a text. I'll try to help you and help you find someone in your area.
Yeah, perfect. So you can have Cheryl's phone number there. You can reach out to her directly. So good of you to share your phone number. Yeah, hundreds of participants are here. So many more are watching it live on Facebook and YouTube as well. Cheryl is here for you. Just go and reach out to her. Hit her inbox. Thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed the session. And we'll continue to work with upcoming conferences. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. So please join our next speaker session, Gloria J. Anderson Litton. Thank you so much. See you in the next session.